What's up guys, Ruppy here, and welcome to the UNPL Spring Fling and my draft analysis for it. First off, I would like to formally apologize to everyone, because this draft analysis is going up extremely late, and I am recording it very late as such. In fact, I could actually tell you the results from my BBR D-League playoff game at this point, because I'm recording it so late. What happened is, this past weekend, I kind of went on vacation a bit. I went to a convention, certainly had a lot of fun. I had a lot on my plate I was trying to get knocked out before I went on that little vacation. And I came back from my little convention trip, and somehow the work pile seemed to have gotten bigger, even though I knocked out quite a bit beforehand. There is some stuff I was lagging behind on. This was one of them. Another was my first round playoff video for BBR D-League Season 2. That is why that went up a little late. That is my one and only flub of that season. But since the UNPL Spring Fling is not upload required, I'm uploading regardless because I really want to share some of these games with you guys and embrace the meta that we are playing for this. But yeah, that is why I'm getting to this really late. I do apologize again, but hopefully as I kind of get back into the swing of things, the kinks will work themselves out. But let's talk about the UNPL Spring Fling. No, this is not the official Season 5 of the Uva Division Pokemon League. It is a little mini-season we are doing between Season 4 and Season 5. As many of you might know, the low-tier meta has become very popular as of late in Draft. It has seen leagues like OG Albina's Low-Tier Mayhem, which we actually kind of based a lot of this on. Obviously, Pokemon for Glory. That's going on. That got revived. Definitely a lot of fun to be had. I personally love... I've never played this meta in a draft sense, but I love lower tiers. I have been a frequent... back in the day when I used to play Showdown a lot more often, I was a frequent player of things like... of tiers like NU, PU, RU, that kind of stuff. I always found it a lot easier to kind of use a lot of those mons. So getting to play in a draft format where they get a chance to shine, I feel is going to be right up my alley. Now, as is standard fare in a draft format league, we had a limited number of points. I believe 95 was the total we were given because of the lower tiers, to draft anywhere between 9 and 11 mons from point tier 16 and below, because obviously lower tier. There is also a ruling regarding Terra, where I believe it is only mons that are 6 points and below are eligible to be Terra captains. Anything else, nada. To truly give the lowest of the low tier a chance to shine. As far as the Terra rules go, we are also doing similar, which I think is a first for UNPL. It is similar to what I did with the BBR D-League, where it is open Terra preview. So I'm free to pick any Terra type I want, but I do have to disclose to my opponent exactly what Terra type it is if I am bringing a Terra captain prior to every game I play. So with all that out of the way, let's get into the draft itself. Now, there are two leagues going on for the Spring Fling. A Wi-Fi League and a Showdown League. I am obviously playing in the Wi-Fi League. And there were enough applicants that we had 3 divisions. I believe they are all going to be completely self-contained. I don't think there's going to be any sort of cross-division playoffs. So, I am back to the Uva Division, and this is where I'm going to stay, and I'm perfectly fine with that. That said, I got afforded the honor of the #1 draft pick. So I pretty much had the whole board to look forward to, as well as the front wheel. A daunting task, considering I'm normally not a fan of picking earlier in drafts. I usually prefer picking later. Although, being near a wheel did kind of help me out a bit. That is, being a wheel pick certainly gives me a lot to look forward to whenever I'm trying to wait for things to come back to me, try to form a plan. But, as I looked over the board to figure out what I wanted right out of the gate, one mon stood out to me. I honestly feel it is probably one of the best mons you could get if you get a first pick or one of the first picks in a low-tier meta draft. It is a mon that has been a notorious headache to me. It has caused me no end of problems. It has been the bane of my existence for the longest time. And I'm excited to actually get to see what I can do with it for a change. With the very first draft pick of the Uva Division for the Spring Fling, I drafted Crocodile. Crocodile is a monster, plain and simple. Ground Dark is a great typing, Intimidate and Moxie are two fantastic abilities I am all too familiar with, if anyone remembers what I did with Gyarados in Season 4 of UNPL. Crocodile is able to stat rocks, which hazards have... I've taken note of the fact that my hazard game has been sorely lacking, and that has greatly cost me in a lot of my drafts as of late. So I am making an effort to try to somewhat address that this time around. Crook has a lot of offensive power. It's got some usable bulk too. 92 is a great speed tier. I think Crook brings a lot to the table, and I'm certainly looking forward to seeing what I can do with it. And I feel it is actually a great starting point to how I want to build this draft. So, after everything got back to me, because I was the front wheel, I had to wait for a little while. There was another mod on the board that caught my attention almost immediately that was still there. It kind of synergizes with Crocodile, at least in the sense of Crook covers a decent chunk of its weaknesses, this mon covers one of its biggest weaknesses, and it's another mon that I really want to use, haven't really gotten a chance to, and I figured why not, let's roll with it. So for my second pick, I drafted Gardevoir. That old Fairy Dragon Steel first mindset kicking back in here. Because Psychic Fairy, Gardevoir is one of the better mons with that type combination, in my opinion. It's got 80 speed. On the physical end, it's not looking too hot, but base 125 special attack, base 115 special defense. Definitely very usable and kind of helps out Gardevoir to be a bit of a special menace while Crook takes care of the physical end of things. Synchronize is a great ability to be able to potentially share any status that someone tries to throw my way. Trace is a nightmare of an ability in draft because it really makes you think about your prep. Because you can have an ability that makes a mon really threatening into my team, but if I bring in Gardevoir and happen to trace that ability, then I could very easily turn the tables if you're not careful. There are a lot of abilities in this game that would be really nasty in Gardevoir's hands, and considering Gardevoir has a pretty good amount of coverage, I'm really looking forward to seeing what I can do with this mon. So since I had the front wheel pick, that means as soon as I grabbed Gardevoir, I was right back up again. And while I was looking at what I wanted to draft alongside Gardevoir at my second and third pick, there's another mon that I felt would really work with my team. It's a Steel type to join my Fairy Dragon Steel mindset, joining Gardevoir's Fairy typing. And more importantly, I guess, in regards to me, it is a mon that has been an absolute headache to me as of late. Perhaps just as much as Crocodile. Because it has been on not one, but two teams, and I can say this now because, again, I'm recording this well after the fact for the BBR D-League playoff game I had to play and upload. This mon has been on the roster of both teams that knocked me out in the very first round of playoffs, not just in BBRD League, but also last season of the UNPL. So I would kind of like it on my side this time to see what I can do with it. My third pick is Empoleon. Empoleon gives me a water type, so that's the start of a Fire, Water, Grass core in addition to its Steel typing. Water Steel is a fantastic typing, honestly. Torrent is a very usable ability with Empoleon if it gets low enough. Competitive is a nightmare of an ability it got this gen to replace Defiant like it had in past gens. Empoleon gives me a second Rock Setter, which is very nice. So, again, trying to address the hazard flaws that have been very present in a lot of my drafts. Empoleon can tank quite a few hits. Base 111 is a really good special attack tier. Base 60 speed, between it, Guard, and Crook, I've got kind of a bit of an interesting speed tier setup I've got going on right now that I think I can definitely work with. So, yeah. Empoleon is also, it gives me pivot with flip turn. It's got some great utility. I think Empoleon's going to really put in some work for me this season. And it'll be nice to have it on my side, and maybe it'll lead me to glory as opposed to being a good reason why I get knocked out of playoffs this time around. So as I wait for the draft to come back around to me, I'm starting to think. When it gets back to me, I'm thinking a couple things. I kind of want an electric type because an electric type is always great to have in draft. I would like to finish my Fairy Dragon Steel Core. I could also use something that removes hazards. And to top it all off, I could use quite a bit of speed, because having something that's pretty well above base 100, definitely a good way to go. I have learned that, I mean, as good as my Season 4 UNPL draft was, I feel I got a lot more out of my BBRD League draft because I better addressed the speed tiers on that end. So, that's why with the first pick of the two I got when it came back to me on the wheel, I grabbed Kilowattrel. Kilowattrel's a mon I've never really gotten to use, but it's a very interesting mon. Base 105 special attack, base 125 speed. It is a very fast bird. It can cause quite a few headaches. Feels a bit limited in what it can do, but I mean, it's got 2 pivoting options in Volt Switch and U-Turn, depending on the matchup. It's got good flying stab, it's got good electric stab, it can roost. I think Kilowattrel brings a lot to the table and gives me a lot of versatility in terms of pivoting options to join up with Empoleon's Flip Turn and kind of go from there. Wind Power is an interesting ability, especially since Kilowattrel can set Tailwind. Volt Absorb is fantastic and actually really covers Empoleon because it just does not care for electric attacks. And just like with Empoleon, it also has competitive. So I've got double competitive users. Definitely a good Intimidate deterrent. That should be a lot of fun to play with. And then for the pick that followed, I grabbed Cyclozar. Cyclozar is an interesting mon. It can kind of go either way in terms of physical or special, since I was starting to get a little special heavy. Dragon Normal's a really interesting type combination. Base 121 speed means it's a little slower than Kilowattrel, but still incredibly fast. I finally have a Rapid Spinner, so I've got hazard removal, and I think Cyclozar is actually pretty reliable in terms of hazard removal too. Cyclozar also has a very diverse move pool. It can run quite a bit physical or special. There's a lot that it can definitely do. I think I can have a lot of fun figuring out what to do with Cyclozar. It also comes with 2 very good abilities. Shed Skin to be able to potentially shrug off any status thrown my way. And then there is the always welcome Regenerator, allowing this thing to just switch out, heal up, and come back in and just continue being a nuisance. So, in that respect, I think I can have a lot of fun with Cyclozar. Now, as I wait for the draft to come back around to me, I'm kind of thinking at this point, maybe I should finish. I got my Fairy Dragon Steel Core finished. Maybe I should finish my Firewater Grass Core. And a couple of things stood out to me in that regard that were a little interesting that I kind of wanted to try, because there's definitely a lot you can try in a low tier meta, and so far I've grabbed a whole bunch of things I've never really used before, so why not keep that trend going? With the 2 picks that I had coming back up, the first one was Arcanine. Arcanine is a very fascinating mon. It can, just like with Cyclozar, can also kind of go physical or special. It's got some pretty decent bulk, base 95 speed. Definitely helps kind of close up the speed gap a bit between Crocodile and Cyclozar. Arcanine now gives me a second Intimidate user, so it and Crocodile are definitely going to be making opposing physical attackers quite a bit angry at me. Especially considering, I will admit, on the physical end of things, my team is not looking the greatest right now in terms of defense. So double Intimidate actually kind of helps shore that up quite a bit. Beyond that, I also have Flash Fire, which is a very welcome ability to shrug off any potential fire hits. Justified is also a fascinating ability as well, on the off chance I'm predicting, say, a knockoff or something. Arcanine would gladly lose that item, get an attack boost, and then start going to town. Arcanine also gives me a very good priority in extreme speed, which is certainly fun to use. And it's got some versatility to it too. I think Arcanine could actually do a lot of work for me. I'm actually really excited to get to use it in draft. And then with the pick following it, I grabbed Amoonguss. Amoonguss is an interesting mon. I'm on record saying that I'm normally not a fan of mons that lean more towards just being more passive walls. But I think Amoonguss is kind of a weird exception to that rule. Don't get me wrong, it is somewhat passive-ish. It does not have the greatest offensive stats. Its bulk is mostly bolstered by its base 114 HP. It is also extremely slow at base 30. But Grass Poison is definitely a usable typing. It gives me a second Regenerator user, so I'm definitely doubling up on a lot of the more nasty abilities you could have in draft for this low-tier team. There's also Effect Spore, which could potentially throw a wrench into people's plans if I want to roll those dice. Amoonguss can spread, it can spread status. It gets access to Toxic, one of the few things that actually got that back this gen. It could paralyze things with Stun Spore. It could put things to sleep with just plain old regular Spore. Grass coverage, poison coverage. It has access to Foul Play. Definitely a lot of things Amoonguss could do, so it's going to be interesting seeing how well it meshes up with things here, to be perfectly honest. Now, at this point in the draft, I only had 7 points left. So, not a lot, but I do need to grab at least 2 more picks within those 7 points, just so I can have the bare minimum roster I'm allowed to have at 9 mons. But this does mean I can start looking towards potential Terra Captain options, because everything I could reasonably grab that would fill out those 2 slots has to come from 6 points and below to allow me to have enough points to actually finish this draft. And I found some really interesting Terra Captain options that I'm very excited to try out. Starting with Cryogonal. Cryogonal not only gives me something else above base 100 to further close the speed gap between Cyclozar and Arcanine at base 105. Base 95 special attack is very usable. Base 135 special defense is very welcome. Cryogonal gives me a second Rapid Spin user, so Cyclozar has some backup. Don't always need to rely on that. Cryogonal can also run Defog if I so happen to choose, to maybe get around potential ghost types trying to block Rapid Spin. Especially since I'm pretty sure Golden Go is not in this format, because it's usually a higher tier mon. So nothing to really block Defog, if I choose to go that route. Kind of like with Kilowattrel, Cryogonal feels a bit limited in what it can do with its move pool. But I think making it a Terra Captain actually gives it a lot of extra versatility in what I could run just based on Terra typing alone. Especially since Ice is not the greatest type defensively, and that's speaking from someone who honestly loves running mono Ice teams and playing around a mono type with it. Ice has its flaws from a defensive standpoint, so being able to Terrasilize away from it and maybe further take advantage of Levitate, definitely welcome. Then for my last pick, I felt I wanted one more physical attacker, because I'm definitely a little more special heavy in a lot of this draft. And there's a really interesting mon that I kind of wanted to dabble with, see what I can do with it. For my final pick of this draft, and my final Terra Captain, I grabbed Lycanroc-Midnight. Lycanroc-Midnight is a weird mon. Obviously, it does not have the speed of the other Lycanroc forms. It does not have the raw power because of Tough Claws from Dust form. Midday form is obviously the fastest of the trio, has really good attack in its own right. Both of them get access to Accelerock, where Lycanroc-Midnight does not, which is kind of sad to me. I don't know why that's the case. But Lycanroc-Midnight does come with a few tricks of its own. Base 115 attack is certainly usable. It's got some iffy abilities that maybe I could use situationally, like Keen Eye, Vital Spirit. No Guard, however, is definitely a good ability. Especially considering, with that in my possession, Lycanroc-Midnight will never miss a Stone Edge. And that's stab for this thing. So that is certainly going to ruin a lot of people's days. It gets access to Trailblaze to help bolster that speed. It gets Sword Stance so it can set up. As a Terra Captain, I have a lot of options I could run, especially since there is a bit of versatility in what Lycanroc can run in its move pool. So I think I've got quite a bit going for me, and I'm really excited to see what I can do with this version of Lycanroc. Maybe I can prove that it is just as much of a threat as its Dusk and Midday counterparts that are normally options that tend to go more in draft. I know Dusk was a higher tier to not be part of this draft. I don't know if Midday was also the case, or if they even got drafted. But Midnight's certainly going to be fun to play with. So, that is my team. It is certainly an interesting roster, and on paper, I think this might be one of the best rosters I've drafted in a while. And that's saying something when compared to UNPL Season 4, UNPL Season 3, despite how poorly I did with that roster, BBR D-League Season 2. I think my draft game is really starting to improve, at least in terms of actually gathering a roster. Will it actually pull it off? Can I finally end my championship drought? Well, we've got a whole season to find that out together. So, thank you guys so very much for watching. I have been Ruppy, and my Columbus Swoo and I will see you guys next time when the UNPL Spring Fling kicks off proper. Take care.